Hey Mustangs, in this video we're going to be taking a look at neurotransmitters. We're going to see how neurotransmitters get released and then what they actually do after they have been released. So, the thing that's going to help you most is this image here. It shows in pretty good detail how the neurotransmitters are going to get released and what they're going to do once they are released. So before you go any further in the video, recommend pausing it and drawing this image. You can draw it directly from the video here, or you can grab your textbook, which I think is probably going to be a little bit easier. Turn to page 761 and draw this image. Okay, so draw and label everything that you can here. And then when you're done, come on back to the video. Now, looking at this image here, what we are actually seeing is, take a look up here first, we have the presynaptic neuron here, and then we have the postsynaptic neuron second. And what we're doing is we're zooming in on the synapse. Okay? And what we're seeing here, this is an axon terminal. So here's the axon here, here's an axon terminal. And then what we're seeing on this side here, this is the synapse here, and on the other side, this is either a cell body or a dendrite of the postsynaptic, after the synapse, the postsynaptic neuron. Now, in order for neurons to be released, an action potential has to reach the axon terminal. So an action potential, remember, is the electric charge being sent down the axon. When the axon terminal carries the action potential towards the axon terminal here, it's going to cause the charges to change here, and as a result of that, it's going to change the membrane potential. It's going to depolarize it, so it's going to change the membrane potential. It's going to flip the charges, and at the axon terminals, you have these voltage-gated ion channels, but these are different. These are voltage-gated calcium ion channels. So these channels will only open to let calcium in once the charge changes, once the membrane here becomes depolarized, and in order for that to happen, the action potential has to reach the end here. So the action potential reaches here, it changes the charges, that causes these voltage-gated calcium channels to open up, that allows calcium to flow in. When the calcium flows in, it causes these structures here, which are vesicles. These vesicles store and contain the neurotransmitters. The calcium causes these vesicles to move towards the axon terminal membrane here, fuse with the membrane. When the vesicle fuses with the membrane, it causes the neurotransmitters to be released into the synapse. The neurotransmitters flow across the synapse, and they bind to these ion channels here. Now these ion channels here on the postsynaptic neuron are not voltage-gated ion channels. So we're not looking at voltage-gated ion channels here. What we're looking in this case, these are ligand-gated ion channels. And you should remember this when we're talking about cell communication. So ligand-gated ion channels will only open if a certain molecule binds to them. In this case, a specific neurotransmitter. So as soon as these neurotransmitters bind to these ion channels, it causes them to open up and allow sodium and potassium to move in or out. And as a result of that, that's going to depolarize the postsynaptic membrane and cause an action potential in this postsynaptic neuron. And that's going to send the electric signal through that. And what will happen when it gets to the end of that one? Well, once the action potential reaches the axon terminal of this one here, same thing's going to happen. So quick review going over it. So an action potential reaches the axon terminal, causes the membrane to depolarize here. So flipping the charges, remember depolarization is flipping the charges here. And when the charges become flipped, it causes voltage-gated calcium ion channels to open. Calcium rushes in. That signals the vesicles to fuse to the axon terminal membrane. When they fuse, they release the neurotransmitters. They float across. They bind to the ligand-gated ion channels on the next neuron. When they bind, it causes these channels to open up. And when they open up, sodium and potassium can move in or out, and as a result of that, the next action potential is created. All right, highly recommend going over this and be able to talk it and say it out loud, explaining how the neurotransmitters are going to get released. Even better would be explaining it to someone else. So try to teach it to someone else and see if you can get them to understand.